Let's go!
It's the LA Football Podcast.
Touchdown Ram! Recovered by the Chargers. Touchdown UCLA!
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front!
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Bleav Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, Los Angeles? I hope everyone's doing well out there after a 1-1 weekend for LA football teams. Thank you for tuning in to the LA Football Podcast. We are on the Bleav Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for all your favorite Los Angeles teams. Joined as always, Frostee Rucker. My man, what's going on?
Ryan, LA, what's up? Like you said, we're 1-1. Great weekend of football, very competitive. Rams are who we thought they are. Chargers are who we thought they are too. So that's where I'm at.
Yep. No, well said. Rams dominate Washington 30-10 out there in a rainy DC area. The Chargers looked great for about 2.5 quarters and then chargered and blew a 17-point lead and lost to the Saints in overtime 30-27. So we're going to jump into both those games. We'll start with the Rams first, but Frostee, first, just how you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm good, man. I can't complain. It was a great weekend of football. Going from our preview shows and talking to Fred Smoot on the podcast and, the way these games unfolded. It was just a great weekend of ball, man.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, it was fun. Obviously, some COVID scares. We got one game pushed back. My Broncos and Patriots got pushed back to next weekend. But, the other games –
you should be pumped about that because that was probably going to be an L with Cam Newton coming back.
Well, at least Drew Lock will be back too, most likely for the Broncos. But yeah, you're probably right about that. But anyway, that's another episode to talk about. But yeah, overall, I thought it was good, fun football. But before we get to these games, congratulations, your Lakers hoist number 17. I haven't talked to you since then.
I'm so glad that you said that though, because this is a football podcast, but we give love to all the LA teams, and yeah. I'm the biggest Laker. I'm not the biggest Laker fan out there, but, I'm up there. If you leave it up to me, I'm top 5. So,
okay.
I'm top 5.
You're not Jack Nicholson, but you're like right after.
Snoop, Jack, and the various celebrities that, gets going courtside. But, LeBron James did what he was supposed to do. He got another ring. He got another banner, and this one's in Staples. Mm-hmm. The Clippers are moving out of Staples, so there's no hiding them anymore. Life's good, man.
Had to throw in a Clippers jab there, huh? Had to throw it in. And you say there's no rivalry. Did you see the right after they won, obviously everyone goes downtown and there's a rally and whatever, and there's all these chants against the Clippers. I'm like, there's definitely a rivalry. Like, why do you even bring them up? If you don't,
they started it, because they win a couple games and they start beating on their chest. They got a new owner. Mm-hmm. Kawhi didn't come. Or we can go all the way back to when the NBA screwed us, the Lakers. I'm going to say us.
Yeah, with Chris Paul.
The Chris Paul, so it goes back to that and try to make them as competitive possible, but they just lose. So,
yeah.
Lakers in 6.
I'm curious who their Clippers' new head coach will be, but with Doc Rivers leaving. But, yeah, big win for the Lakers. I was honestly shocked they lost Game 5. What a great game by Jimmy Butler. I mean, that was an all-time game there, but I was pretty confident they'd handle Game 6. And I think the final score, wasn't it like 9 points, but they were up by like 30 at one point. So, I mean, they pretty much ran away with it.
Yeah, it was just a good game. It was a good night to be a Laker.
Did you celebrate?
No, but I stayed up the whole time. And that was enough. And I was on the East Coast time. So I stayed up and my eyes were bleeding. But once I seen that confetti and seen LeBron with a stogie, I was jacked.
Love it. 4 finals trophies now and 4 finals MVPs for LeBron, making his case for the GOAT, the greatest ever, which is always a fun conversation. But before we move on, we got to talk about Bet Online. Did you put any bets on that finals game, or would you stay?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't, because the last one I did, we lost. So I was like, I'm going to hold off and just stay back and do the norm and let these guys take care of business. So, no, I missed out on the fun, but hopefully our listeners didn't.
Yeah, I was watching Game 5, and I was right before the game. I was watching with some friends. I'm like, all right, you got to go to Bet Online. It's our partner for the show. Throw some bets down, and they all ended up losing like hundreds of dollars because the Lakers lost. But BetOnline still a great place to put your money down. Lots of plenty wagers. Money line now, basketball's over, but still plenty of football. So head to betonline.ag if you haven't signed up yet, which you're foolish for not doing, but there are still plenty of new sign-up bonuses. So don't miss out on that. So head to betonline.ag and sign up today. So let's talk about the Rams, Frostee, brought to you by Golden Road, Whose House Golden Ale. Delicious beer, local right here in Los Angeles. We actually have a giveaway going on right now on LFB Network. If you go to our Twitter or Instagram, all you got to do is retweet or like the post and follow us and subscribe to the podcast. And you'll be entered to win a free case of Rams Whose House Golden Ale. Easy peasy.
Hey, that's a hell of a deal, man.
All right.
Do the retweets, follow our page, you get beer. Simple.
Who doesn't want free beer? Free delicious beer. But Frost, so this game, you called it. You said you thought the Rams were going to blow the doors off Washington. It wasn't going to be close after a interesting game against the Giants where the offense looked kind of stagnant and flat. You thought they would get things corrected, and you called it. What were just your initial thoughts of the win, of the offense, of McVay? What were just your overall thoughts of the game?
Well, I was just pleased with the performance. Obviously when you're a really good team and you don't play up to your potential and you play subpar like they did the week before, a really good coach and a really good leader is going to get that thing going, and he's going to right the ship. And when you have a veteran team like that with veteran coaches that have been around, competitive, and their goals are championships, you're not going to get too many high and low games. Obviously in the football season or any sports you could say, but we're talking about football here. You don't want to be a roller coaster, right? You want to always be treading upwards and not keep going down. And they did that. I think they took a huge step with a great Washington defense. This offense needed to score some points. They did. Mm-hmm. And our defense was lights out and did what they're supposed to do, be as dominant. And, for that, I'm pleased. Good teams win the way they're supposed to win.
Yeah. Let's start with the defense, and then we'll get to the offense, because I was extremely impressed with that defense. I don't know if you even looked it up or heard. I know you watched the game, obviously, but they held Washington to 108 total yards. I know Washington's had their struggles. They've had their struggles at running game. They've had their struggles at quarterback, which I kind of will get into more later too, because obviously awesome that Alex Smith was able to get back out on the field. But just looking, when you hold a professional team, I don't care how bad they are, this is a professional NFL caliber team, to 108 total yards, one football field and 8 yards. That's pretty impressive. You had to be stoked being a defensive guy, being like, wow, those guys are out there balling, completely shutting down. It was like, I remember the Titans coach Yost. I don't want to see them gain another yard moment, because they just flat out played 8 sacks. They look great.
Yeah, they look phenomenal. Like you said, that's a well-coached ball club right there. Mm-hmm. Being completely dominant, starting up front. Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in the league. He just really sets the tone, and that defense rallies behind him. Like you said, 108 yards. They're flying around the ball. But Aaron Donald being the best defender in the game, the team rallied behind him. He sets the tone always, and he has to. I follow all the D-line, and I see, they really like being the ones in front. Mm-hmm. They always have something saying when they're coming out of the tunnel or whatnot. You have to lead from the front. And they do that. They're the closest to the ball, and they should be like that the rest of the season, barring no injuries or major setbacks. This team has the potential to do what they did. And I'm just pleased with the effort all around. They played lights out. It's a struggling Washington offense. We knew that with the quarterback going down, and, everyone's clapping for Alex Smith, as a great moment to see him get back in the game. But, that, he's been out of football for a while, and that didn't help them meet the Washington club any in this effort.
It was almost like watching like your kid go against a pack of wolves, because you're happy for him to be back in the game, but it looked like he was just going to get injured immediately, because they were just swarming him. I think his third play, Aaron Donald rode him like a horse, just like jumped on his back, and you're like, oh, good for the sack, but please don't snap his leg. Please don't snap his leg.
Yeah. But to say that, hats off to, Alex Smith for the rehab that he went through. I've been through a lot of rehabs in my day, nothing as severe as his, and career-threatening and life-threatening. I'm cheering for a guy like that, especially an older guy. in the league. And, I don't think he was on the roster to actually get to play. And now they're going to have to see what's going on the weeks coming up,
Yeah, I'm curious if he'll be the guy going forward or if they'll go back to Kyle Allen, but I guess that's for Washington to decide and not us. But you mentioned the D-line. We had Coach Henderson on before the season, your buddy, and he's got those guys just playing great. The D-line looks phenomenal. Obviously, Aaron Donald. We've talked about every week just, getting some more consistency from the other players besides Aaron Donald. But they've been good against the run. They've been stout all 4-5 games. They look better in this one too. I think Morgan Fox is a guy we don't get enough credit for. Rotational guy, but he's come in. He plays almost 50% of the snaps, and he's been really solid and sound too. So Aaron Donald deserves every ounce of credit for what he does because he's the best to do it. But the other guys have done really well also, and it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, and with that being said, Aaron Donald is the leader on that team. He sets the absolute tone, and he's balling. And like we talked about, the other guys around him had to step up and play, and they did. And that's why they played such a dominant football game. And, with a game like they just played, they're going to drop down, to say that correctly, in all the rankings, pass defense, run defense. They had 8 sacks in the game. That should bump them all the way up to be the leader. If not, we have to double check that. But again, they have to continue to play like that, like the hair's on fire, Coach Henney, or like I like to call him, Henny Given Sunday. It has these guys just flying around. And, he got in a position to be able to coach this D-line, and it wasn't broke, and he didn't have to fix it. He just had to put a little bit of his twist on it. And these guys are, obviously playing at a high level, and it looks like what he's doing is working.
Yeah, absolutely. They're absolutely killing it. And I know probably your answer to this, but let's talk about it anyway. MVP races, and we're 5 games in, so way too early, but it's always quarterbacks that get the love. Obviously, Russell Wilson's playing unreal this year. Patrick Mahomes, he's obviously always going to be in the talks now. Aaron Rodgers having a good year. But Aaron Donald has to be – I know he should be every year, and he usually gets a little love, but there is no reason right now that he should not be maybe not the leader, but at least 1A in that MVP talk, right? You think so?
Well, yeah, and I think the way he's playing, he's going to rightfully be justified to be in the talks. It takes a lot for a defender to be in play for the MVP race, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's playing lights out on the run game. He's sacking the quarterback. He's really, like I keep saying, he's set the tone for this defense, and that last game should separate him a little bit to, be in the MVP race.
Yeah, I think so. And, 4 sacks in this one set the tone, which is dominant the entire game. So I don't know how he would not be. And maybe he is. A lot of people maybe do have him up there, but I think he just deserves more love, even though he gets quite a bit. And I think he deservedly, hopefully, will be in those talks at the end of the season. But it seems like – can you remember the last defensive guy to win one? I'm trying to think of anyone outside of a quarterback that's won MVP in forever. I can't think of any.
It had to be like a Charles Woodson or something like that, right?
You'd think, yeah. We'll have to look that up. But I'm curious who the last defender was that won MVP. It seems like, obviously, yeah. Obviously, MVP most valuable is, that discretionary term I think a lot of people use because usually it ends up being a guy for a winning team. So one can say like, well, if this guy played for a losing team and he actually made this team better, why wouldn't he be more valuable? But anyway, I think he's up there. So let's talk about the offense now. Jared Goff, another good, clean game for him. Over 300 yards passing, had 2 touchdowns, had a over 70% completion percentage. Looked pretty poised, looked pretty good. What was your takeaways from Goff and the offense?
So, yeah, it looked like Jared was finally in rhythm, and that's a word I don't use a lot. But it looked like it was in rhythm, and they were totally in sync on the offensive side of the ball. Bobby Tree is always playing phenomenal, helping him out. Cooper always helping him out. But, yeah, it's time that people get this stigma, or let me say this the right way. It's time for people to stop thinking Jared Goff's going to play like Aaron Rodgers. He's going to do this. He's supposed to manage the game. They have a balanced offensive attack. They're going to be heavy on the run just to make sure that play action pass opens up. And it worked to perfection this last weekend.
Do you think we just had MVP talk with Aaron Donald? Do you think Jared Goff, maybe I'll just say this. I don't think he's in that MVP talk yet, but do you think he at least can be talked about as a top-tier quarterback? Do you think he's still more game manager, very, very good, but not quite top tier?
Yeah, he's game manager. Not saying he's a bad player. He's not an MVP race for me. He's not the MVP on the team. He's not the MVP on the offense.
Yeah.
Not, and this isn't a knock at him. It's just, when you look across the league, his numbers aren't better than anyone. They've just won more games than a lot of teams. So this isn't a shot at Jared at all. He's just not playing at MVP caliber of football right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's having a very, very good year. I think he's for sure a top half quarterback. He's very, I think, disrespected league-wise. But yeah, he's not top tier in those top 3, top 4. And when I say that, maybe you agree or disagree, but when I think top tier, it's a guy that can 100% take over a game and put everything on his back and win games. Like we saw Russ do with the Seahawks just this week, come back against the Vikings, take over, throw 3 late touchdown passes. We've obviously seen Mahomes do it even in the Super Bowl on the biggest stage. Rodgers does it seemingly every week. And Goff, I just don't know if he has that in his repertoire yet. He could prove us wrong, but yet he's just playing. He's very accurate. He's good when the play calling, when the game plan, when the game script is to his advantage. He's really, really good. I just don't know if when chaos, as you call it, because football is a chaotic game, when chaos strikes, can he truly take over and be the guy that will need to be? And I don't think we've seen that yet. Again, not a slight at him. We just haven't seen it yet. So I don't think you can put him in that conversation yet. But he's playing very, very well.
And we're not sitting here bashing him. We are an LA-based football podcast, but we're keeping it a buck.
There you go. Yeah, we're just proving we're not on the payroll, even though we have this delicious Rams beer. It's not the Rams paying us, so we don't have to butter everyone up all the time.
Right.
But played a very good game. One thing I've liked about McVay, his whole coaching career, but specifically this year, it seems like every week so far, he's almost kind of featured someone different in the game plan. This week, it was Gerald Everett. Coming in to this week, tight end Gerald Everett, I believe, had 56 total receiving yards through 4 weeks. And in this game alone, he finished with 90 receiving yards. And they used him in a variety of really interesting packages. I think one big play he came out of the backfield, was almost lined up as a fullback, kind of leaked through the defensive line, and then just was wide open in space in the flats, ended up for a big, I think, like 40-yard gain. So loved Sean McVay's game plan, loved his play calling, as he was very creative, and that's something I think that he's shown this year that he didn't show as much last year. So that's a very positive going forward, and why this Rams team is so not only exciting to watch, but is truly, in my opinion, one of the top 5 teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to play like that until they get matchups like they got coming up this next week, because they're going to play versus a very good, solid football team, division game. And these are when these tests have to happen. These are where, you played really good versus Washington. Everyone's pumped up. Can you continue it? Can you keep playing up to that level and being dominant? But at the end of the day, just win the game, right?
Exactly. And that's what they did. And they won in decisive fashion. So great win. I enjoyed watching it from top to bottom. And I don't know if you have anything else to add. I think we covered it all. It was pretty straightforward game. They just came out and played well.
And like you said, Ryan, they did what they're supposed to do. They dominated the football game. They went out there and they played a low-tier football team that's not really on the cups of winning anything, and they took care of business. So it's on the next week. They got a big one coming up, and I'm sure we're going to get to that relatively soon. But let's move on.
Yeah, I got a big show coming into the week previewing the division rival Niners, who got blown out by Miami, but don't let that change your opinion of how this game's going to go. It's still a division game, still going to be a hard-fought game. They were in the Super Bowl just last year, so this is still going to be a big matchup. But Rams took care of business this week in Washington, rainy conditions, and they outplayed their opponent, and they played great, and they're contending for one of the top teams in the NFL. So hats off to them. Great win for the Rams, and excited to see this team continue to grow. But I do before we move on, I want to mention a quick injury update. Jordan Fuller, the standout rookie out of Ohio State, who had another tremendous game, had the neck roll on, looked more like a linebacker than a safety. But he actually injured that neck. I want to say it was on like the last defensive play. Had a big tackle, and so he was just placed on IR today. So that's kind of a big blow. But luckily, with these new COVID rules, he can come back in 3 weeks. So it's not a season ending or 6 to 8 weeks. It's a 3-week IR. So we'll see Rapp step in. Obviously, Taylor Rapp, very capable, started most of last year. And hopefully we'll finally start seeing some Terrell Burgess, the kid out of Utah that I've been very excited about, but we haven't seen much just because Jordan Fuller's played so well.
It's all about opportunity, and here it goes.
Yep. So, again, you don't want to lose a guy like Fuller because of how well he's played, but because of how deep the Rams are at safety, I don't think it'll be a huge, blow to their defensive unit, but something that needs to be noted as that's another injury. So, with that said, let's put a bow on this game as the Rams win 30-10, and we'll move on now to our Chargers recap. So the Chargers had another game slip through their fingertips, one that I'm going to be honest with you, Frost, at halftime, I was like, man, this looks like a damn good team. A team that came out here ready to play. They listened to Frosty and I on the podcast. They got firing all cylinders. Justin Herbert looks tremendous. And then we saw what happened last week. The exact same thing comes out. Defense looks flat. Lets Drew Brees and the offense basically do whatever they want. Offense just looks very vanilla, just running on first and second down. And then you're having third and longs, which is never a good thing. And ultimately losing in overtime. So I'll toss it to you. Whatever you want to, if you want to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, your initial thoughts, but another bummer loss for the Chargers.
This game ended the way I said it would. I just said it a second ago, in our pre-show. Mm-hmm. All these games are coming down to teachable moments. And this team is not there yet, but they're going to be there. And yes, they had the big lead. Yes, you wouldn't like to see that happen and diminish and then eventually lose the game. But what we're seeing here is a lot of progression with your new face of your franchise.
Yeah.
And let's hang our hat on that. Let's just hang our hat on that and let's just keep going. Ryan, I'm not really disappointed. I'm just to the point where they just have to take that next step, and you would love to see them win one of these games.
Yeah.
But the teachable moments are there. You see the team coming together. Remember, this team has a lot of injuries, and they're battling, right? They're battling. It's a well-coached team, but we want to see them finish the game.
Yeah.
We just want to see them finish.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that's something I get frustrated with talking to friends and fans is you look at all these injuries. We'll just talk Chargers specifically. I can talk other teams too, but Chargers specifically. You look at all of these injuries they have, and they're in these close games, but they don't finish them out. They lose. And immediately what a lot of people and fans point to is Anthony Lynn. They're just not well coached enough to get over the hump. They're not well coached enough to hold on to these leads. When in my opinion, and maybe yours too, I'm going to let you speak on it, I think it's the opposite. The fact they're in those games, in these one-score games every single week, they're not getting blown out. They're not getting, in my opinion, out-coached. They're not getting out-game planned. Yes, they had some mistakes, had some miscues there in the second half. But the fact that they have, by far and away, the most injuries in the NFL, and they just took two surefire Hall of Fame quarterbacks to the last possession of the game, to me, that is good coaching. It's just more about execution now, finishing.
Absolutely. And that's it. It's just the finish part of it, and they're going to get there. I'm not down. I said last week on our show, the fans should be very excited about this team with the progression that they're having. We keep talking about it, and it if you're a Charger fan. You guys have a lot of injuries out there. Yeah. That's some really important positions. Not that any other position isn't important, right? But, yeah, let's just look at it. You got your top centers down, your top corners down.
Yeah, you got you're missing your right guard and your right tackle that you brought in also. So your whole right side of your line didn't play. Obviously,
your starting quarterback of the season is out.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the coaching enough that Justin Herbert's come in his stead and played great. Missing your starting running back. Oh, and we didn't even mention that not only your best receiver, but arguably a top 3 receiver in the NFL, he went down in the first quarter last night also.
Yeah, and Ingram's backup, Uchenna Nwosu, he's down. SC guy, shout out to SC. He's down. Yeah. I mean, this team is down, rattling, and like you said, they've played versus Hall of Fame quarterbacks and taken them to the brink. Do not be upset with this team. In fact, jump on the bandwagon, fill that stadium up when you can, and watch how this team rises. Because the Los Angeles Chargers, any based LA team is going to be a destination for people. The Lakers just won. I love to say that. And the Rams are doing great. The Chargers are going to pick up just right behind them. The difference here is the Rams already have solidified their their quarterback, and now the Chargers are just now getting to that point. And once this thing gets going, I'm telling you, the Chargers are going to be a team to reckon with.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to hear you say it for everyone listening. You don't think Anthony Lynn should have a hot seat at all? You think
No, not at all. Not at all. I like Anthony Lynn. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. They're just not winning the game. They're not finishing. And that's just because you're plugging players in and just praying they don't screw up or get hurt at this point, right?
Yeah.
But these guys are playing at a high level. And if you're doing it on such short notice and you're plugging a guy here, plugging a guy there because guys are just going down, your depth's going down. So you got guys off the street coming in, and they have to fill in. They have to do a phenomenal job, and they're doing that. That's because of coaching. The coach is probably staying after hours just to make sure these guys are caught up with the game plan.
Yeah.
How do you even game plan when you had all this stuff you did in training camp, and now you got guys off the street coming in? Guys are lower on the depth chart. Practice squad players that are getting elevated. This is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you. Once they get back to full strength, you even got a Bosa that's been hurt since week 2.
Yeah, just battling.
And he's just battling for you guys. Don't give up on this team. I like this team.
Well, not even to mention the guys that are playing for those injured players. Some of them are playing out of position, which I think, again, if you don't really know the sport, and I'm not trying to sit here on a pedestal or a throne saying I know more than everyone, but guys like Rayshon Jenkins, who is a true free safety, but now is playing strong safety because Derwin James' injury. So now he's playing the free spot. That's a big change when he's used to playing that center fielder type, and now he's in the box, line of scrimmage. You have guys like Trey Pipkins, who is a developmental tackle anyway, but last year was playing left tackle, and now this year they're moving it over to right tackle because Brian Bulaga can't stay healthy. So you have guys not only coming in for injured players, but they're playing out of position also. And the fact that they're in all these games, and I don't want to sound like every week we're just trying to pump this team up because, a loss is a loss. And I know Chargers fans are getting sick of it because it's a joke now, the Spanos curse, and just every week they find a way to lose. But with everything that's gone on, this is a team that should not even be in these games, realistically. Rookie quarterback, it wasn't supposed to start, shouldn't be in these games.
And they're taking these teams down to the wire. So they just need to get out of the hump and figure out how to finish. And all these moments, like I keep saying, are teachable moments for this team. Some teams, they may be going through these highs and lows, and we're going to throw them away because they should know better. This team is figuring out who they are on the roll because of all the players, all the injuries they've had, brand new quarterback. I mean, I'm sticking to this team. I think they have more positives coming than negatives.
Yeah, I agree. And the last thing I want to say about the coaching-wise, Gus Bradley, defensive coordinator. I'm curious your thoughts because this is now, we'll just say for sure the second week in a row, but really you can include the Kansas City game in this. You can probably even include the Carolina game in this, but comes out in the first half, and the defense looks fantastic. Holding Tom Brady to I think 14 points, holding Patrick Mahomes to minimal points, holding Drew Brees to 3. Well, they ended up getting a late touchdown there to 10 points. Then in the second half, it's like they just got completely figured out, or they didn't make their own adjustments. What do you attribute that to? Is that a problem with Gus Bradley, or is that just these great quarterbacks give them enough time, they're going to start reading things in the defense, and they're eventually just going to pick you apart?
Look, I'm not down on Gus Bradley at all. I really feel like he has a lot on his plate, from guys going down weeks before that. He, was probably so excited that he had a Chris Harris. He's down. He's hurt, right? You get all the way down to this game. Ingram's out. You got Uchenna playing. He's down now. So probably in his play calling that he can't be as aggressive. And, when you're playing with a lead like that, you don't want to risk it a little bit. For me, I'm an aggressive guy when it comes to football, and I would just stay on the pedal. But how can you call plays when your personnel's down? How can you call plays and tell a guy, go back to training camp rules when he wasn't there in training camp,
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough for them, but they're battling. And that's all I'm going to give them right now. I'm giving them a pass this week. I want to see this team get over the hump and finish a game, but I'm not so down on them collapsing because it's personnel. I can't call certain things. It's deeper than the things that we know because I've been in the huddle.
Yeah. Okay. So you would, and that's why I wanted to ask you, because you do know this. So you would think the reason why they're getting off these such good starts on defense is just really having a great game plan, are able to stifle things. But then when you give these great quarterbacks, great skill players, eventually it's pad against pad. And if there's just more talent on offense, you can only do so much. And because the Chargers don't have the personnel right now, it just starts catching up with them. You think it's more that than opposed to Bradley falling apart?
Ryan, I honestly feel like, if anything, the offense needs to hold the ball a little bit more and eat the clock up more and not give it back. And I'm not even shading the offense because I think they're doing a phenomenal job. I think the team is doing good. They just can't finish.
Yeah.
If you look across the league, the majority of the games end by 3 points. So if you get up, a team can strike back because they have playmakers.
Yeah.
People make plays. They can make someone miss a tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I just feel like once they get it and they get over the hump and just win the game, we won't be talking about negative plays. We won't be talking about that because they won the game. And that's something that we do with the Rams, besides this past week when they blew Washington out. Before, they just win the game.
Yeah.
And that's good enough in this league because you just want to stack them. You got to stack these wins.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think if the Chargers can roll off a couple, three wins in a row, Anthony Lynn's, which we both agree, shouldn't be on a hot seat anyway, but he does that. I don't even think there'll be any talk about him being on a hot seat anymore. It's just, fortunately, you got to win games. It's a production league, and however good they're playing, if they're not winning, it's why it's a topic for discussion. So, but I agree with you. I think they're going to get there. It was just, I was actually disappointed watching just because I thought they played so well for so much of the game. And then we didn't even bring this up, to lose with a kicker missing an extra point and missing a game-winning field goal.
Right.
It's tough. It's tough. You've been more of a kicker guy more than most. What'd you think of him? Moneybags. Did he change his nickname now?
I even added him on my fantasy, so I'm a
So
little
did
bit more. All right, see, I'm a little bit more bummed than most, but you got to make the kicks. You got one job.
Yeah.
Stay at the office. Don't just kick and leave early and go golf and do what you got to do. Stay there because pretty soon we're going to be looking for a new kicker.
How many games have you been into that was decided by a missed kick? Quite a few, I'm assuming, yeah?
Quite a few. It's either we made it more times than not, but there's been some that you don't make it and you look at a guy, but it's like, look, I missed a tackle. I wasn't in my gap one play. And, sometimes those are pressured moments at the end of games, right? Those are high pressure moments, and that's all you got to do. Don't screw it up. But again, that's why you have the job. You got to get that done. And I think if he does it again, they'll be looking for a new kicker.
I know, which is unfortunate because I bet the Chargers have been looking for a new kicker for a decade now almost, and they thought they had him in money bags, and now this year has been a down year, and specifically last night, losing that fashion. So hopefully he'll get it corrected. Do you, when you get those missed kicks, though, say you have a guy that missed now 2 out of 3 games, had an opportunity to win you the game and missed, as a locker room, do you start to lose faith in him, or do you try to just
I don't know. One of my best friends is a kicker, Shane Graham. He played 80 years in the league. I like to say that because I know he's going to listen. No, I don't lose faith because I know him on a personal level, and I just know he could have had a bad day at work, right? But does the organization do or whatnot? That's out of my hands, right? I look at him as a brother, and like I said, I miss tackles, and I should have ran a little bit harder here, or I should have been in my gap, and I wasn't. My arms should have been locked out here, and they weren't. Yeah. So it's easy to criticize them just because they're singular plays, as for any other player that plays 30-plus plays a game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, very easy, and unfortunately, that's part of the game. But that's why they also get paid to do a job. And unfortunately, he didn't do it last night, and that cost the Chargers the game. If you want to put it all on that, but obviously other factors go into it too. But yeah, tough loss. Looking at forward, we'll talk more about it in the previous show. But the Chargers now, because of some COVID issues around the league, nothing directly dealing with them, but it affects them. Now their bye week goes from week, I think it was 10 or 11, and now it moves to this week 6. Do you like that? Does it benefit them now? Because some of these guys, Melvin Ingram, probably Chris Harris is still too soon, but some of these other guys, they can actually get back for their next game as opposed to playing one more week without those guys. Do you think this timing of the bye, you like it, or do you wish it would have stayed?
I love this bye. I absolutely love this bye because they need it.
Yeah.
Getting guys back, going over the game plan again. Mm-hmm. You can still go into work and not play. So I think they need the extra time, And I think if they correct it, guys will be more rejuvenated after this bye, taking care of their bodies, get some guys back. Like I said, watching film, it's a great time for it. They need it, especially coming off this loss.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a perfect time just with everything we've seen. Obviously, also the bad loss, they can get that taste out of their mouths, hopefully. But most likely by their next game, should for sure have Brian Bulaga and Trey Turner both healthy, which is huge on the offensive line, who struggled mightily last night against the Saints. And then I would assume Keenan Allen, which should be good to go, who left with back spasms. We don't know the severity of it, but most likely was more keeping him out just from uncomfort. I mean, obviously a lot more than that, but I don't think it's long-term.
Right.
And then hopefully should have Melvin Ingram back too. So I think it does come at a great time where hopefully then in week 7, they can be closer to full strength and get back on track and get Justin Herbert his first win.
Yeah. And again, they lost Uchenna Nwosu, and they may have a chance of getting Ingram back. So here we go. You know, I'm not throwing the towel on this team. I'm very much seeing progression, and I think they're on the road to get some wins.
Yeah. And if you look, this was their gauntlet of their schedule. The very beginning of the schedule after Cincinnati, this was definitely the toughest part, you know, back-to-back games in Tampa and in New Orleans. Their schedule still tough, but it softens up a bit after this. So hopefully we'll be able to see them rattle off some wins. And in a very wide-open AFC, obviously the AFC West I wouldn't call wide open, although the Raiders did beat the Chiefs this past week. But I think the Chiefs are still the favorite for the division. I don't think that's changing anytime soon. But there's still wild card spots to be had, and if they can rattle off some wins, move to 4-4, you know, move to 5-4. But hey, it's a week by week business, so we'll see how they look after the bye. But I echo what you say. Tough as a fan, but don't be down on this team, because I think there's still a lot of positives to take from it, and they're learning situations that they can improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So, yeah, we'll put a bow on it.
I concur.
You concur. There we go. So we'll put a bow on that. Tough loss, but we'll try to keep this positive train rolling and move that. And I forgot to mention, but this is, of course, brought to you by Bolt Up Golden Ale by Golden Road Brewery. I mentioned it for the Rams segment, but head to our Twitter or Instagram at LAFB Network, and you can enter to win a free case of your choice of Bolt Up or Whose House. What?
You're going to take a drink? You did last segment.
This one's not open, but I can.
Do it. It's right there.
Okay, well. Peer pressure.
Yep. Works every time.
All right, there we go. Delicious golden ale. So,
Yeah.
Head to enter those and get a free case of beer. Who doesn't want a free case of beer? We're getting them out before next week, before week 6.
Get the beer, folks. Get it.
That's right. So, well, Frost, unless you got anything else to add, I think that'll do it for the recap show.
We have a good one coming up for both teams coming up. Even with this bye, we have something for the Chargers, and we do have something very special for the Rams also. So stay tuned. We'll always keep you informed on the LA Football Network.
That's right. So got some good guests coming up here this week. So thank you as always for tuning in to the LA Football Podcast. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a rating or a review. We would certainly appreciate it. You can watch us video format, YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, all at LAFB Network. If you want to contact us, Frostee, where can everyone find you at?
They can find me at The Organic Frost. Stay out of the DM. You can email me at frosteepodcast@yahoo.com.
Well, how are they going to contact you if they stay out of the DM?
Don't be in the DM right now. I don't need that smoke.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, you can DM me at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. You can email me podcast@lafbnetwork.com. So, good weekend. We keep saying it at the end of the shows, but we're getting a bunch of good Pac-12 stuff in the works here as we are.
Oh, it's coming out.
What are we, 3 weeks away from kickoff?
3 weeks away, and the Bruins and my mighty Trojans will be kicking off and starting this Pac-12 shortened season.
Yeah, I can't wait. Did you see, before we sign up, did you see Elijah Vera Tucker opted back in for the Trojans? That's a huge.
Absolutely. That's huge, you know.
Opt-in on the offense.
We're sitting around and it's just like, there's no new COVID outbreaks or nothing like that.
Yeah.
Might as well put my hat back on and get out there and play some ball.
Exactly. So go to war with your brothers. And so that's a huge news for the Trojans as he's coming back. One of the probably one of the top offensive linemen in the entire Pac-12, maybe even the country. So I'm sure Keaton Slovis is very excited about that. Marquise Stepp, all those guys in the backfield. Yeah, Bruin's going to work too. We're in the works of getting a couple players on. I've been in contact with a few big name guys. I won't tease it there.
Listen to Ryan.
Tease it there. I know Frostee's excited about that, but so
Man.
that's on the docket coming. The goal is hopefully once these seasons are rolling, we have a guest per team per show. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So we appease to everyone, which will be great. So, but thank you all for tuning in. Frostee, appreciate you as always, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Much love. You take care and stay safe out there. And go vote. How about that?
There you go. Go vote. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And stay tuning in to the LA Football Podcast. We'll talk to everyone in a couple days.